Good morning and welcome to AM Agenda. I'm Ashley Gillen. Well, the opposition says it's ready to negotiate in good faith to pass the government's renewable energy target in the Senate this week. Today, the Shadow Environment Minister, Greg Hunt, will sit down with the Climate Change Minister, Penny Wong, to discuss amendments to the bill. I spoke with him a short time ago. Mr Hunt, good morning.
Good morning.
Do you expect we will see the legislation for the renewable energy target passed successfully through the Senate this week?
We want to see renewable energy legislation passed through the Senate this week if possible. We're very committed to the 20% target. We want the vision of the mirror fields of California and Nevada, of geothermal and tidal energy for Australia. So this legislation is a year overdue. It's been on the notice paper of the House of Representatives for 2 months without the government bringing on. We're the ones forcing the pace. We want the legislation. We have things we have to work on, but let's get bipartisanship and renewable energy legislation for Australia.
You'll be meeting with the Climate Change Minister, Penny Wong. What are the key amendments you want to tack on to this bill, and are they deal breakers for you?
Well, the first thing is the bill has a gap in that solar and geothermal and tidal, the great new emerging technologies, are potentially frozen out. I'm sure that's not their intention, but we want to work to fix the omission, potentially, of solar and geothermal and tidal. Secondly, we want to make sure that the renewable gas jobs, 400 renewable gas jobs, are protected. They're part of the New South Wales system, they're part of the German, they're part of the American system, they're excluded from the Australian system. And finally, we want to look at the detail of the decoupling which the government has proposed. They've said they decouple. It's not clear yet which sectors will be accommodated and which won't. We'll ask for that, but we'll negotiate in good faith. We want this legislation.
If the government, though, doesn't budge on a few of those key points, will the coalition vote this down?
Well, if the government doesn't fix key things, we will. That's our goal. We want this legislation. If the government doesn't fix key things, we will.
On the emissions trading scheme legislation, has the coalition already started drafting amendments to present to the government?
Well, we could actually begin talks today on the emissions trading scheme.
Thing, but do you have actual
on
amendments?
Clear actions to go forward. Let's put a simple proposition to the government. Why not today, as part of our discussions, deal with the idea of agriculture? Let's make sure that agricultural offsets or green carbon are included in the system. That could be a fine, detailed negotiation which we have today and complete this week. If we can talk about renewable energy, surely today we can deal with the very fine detail of agricultural emissions and making sure that our farmers can be carbon sinks rather than taxed.
Back to my question though, has the coalition actually started drafting amendments?
Well, we've actually set out very clear positions and we'll produce amendments later on.
To amendments.
This is a game. Can I make this point? When John Howard used to negotiate, they would reach a heads of agreement. When Barack Obama negotiates, he reaches a heads of agreement. What the government does is it says, we will put our interest ahead of the national interest, we'll pretend that there's a way to do these things. And we're willing to talk without preconditions, anytime, any place.
Well, the government has made it clear that it's willing to sit down and negotiate with you as long as you can put forward some actual amendments.
Well, that's absolutely clear. We've already got the essence of what we want to do, and that isn't just amendments. That's even more important than that. We can say that in the United States and Europe, agricultural emissions can be dealt with through carbon sinks, through this notion of green carbon. It's completely excluded from the Australian system and it's costing the world emissions. So let's solve that in talks this week.
On another matter, the Cubby station in Queensland is up for sale. How seriously should the government be considering buying up some of the water on that property?
Sadly, what we've seen so far is that the government has purchased phantom water. They've purchased air over dams rather than real water. And instead they've delayed the expenditure on rural replumbing, on fixing up our farms. We think that $500 million could save 150 billion litres through piping and channeling and lining of dams throughout the Murray-Darling Basin. That would seem a surer way of getting real water. So far they've purchased phantom water, and with respect, I think Senator Wong this morning indicated concerns that they could actually separate the water from the land and doubts as to whether there was significant water available.
So just to be clear, the Coalition's position is that the Cubby Station, that wouldn't be the way to go?
Well, our priority is expenditure on replumbing of rural Australia, the 150 billion litres which could be saved for $500 million. That's the priority because it creates food security, it creates real water saving, and it keeps farmers on the land.
Just finally, the Nielsen poll out today shows Malcolm Turnbull's still struggling. How long can the party keep Malcolm Turnbull as leader while he continues to sink in the polls?
Well, I don't accept your analysis. What I say is this. I think that Malcolm's about doing the difficult, not the easy. He's just had a huge win on the renewable energy target. The government's backed down. They have made significant concessions.
A back down, though, when it means that the government's going to be able to getting through one of its key election promises.
Well, as of Friday, Lindsay Tanner was saying we would never do this. As of Sunday, it's a win for Malcolm Turnbull. So it's not just a win, it's a win for Australia because it's about jobs. Malcolm does the difficult things, not the easy. That's his life story. That's what he'll continue to do. And that's why I personally have a deep, strong belief in him as a leader.
Has the party got a plan B? The polls showed that voters would actually prefer Joe Hockey to be the leader.
No, there is no alternative plan. There's one leader, Malcolm Turnbull. He has an understanding of the waves of history. He has an understanding of how you build a debt-free future. And he has an extraordinary amount of courage. And I think he offers Australia, in terms of water reform and health reform and clean energy, as well as a debt-free future, something unique.
Greg Hunt, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Stay with us. After the break, we will be going to our panel of politicians with Labor's Richard Marles and the Liberals' Jamie Briggs. That's next.